Okay, welcome to QuarryTech, and welcome to Innovative Quarry Optimization Ideas. My name is Joe Steiger. I also have Karl Lemke on the call as well, so he's been co-presenting with me. He looks after the Western North America, and I look after the Eastern North America. And we're going to talk a little bit about innovative ways to optimize your quarry operations. So, Karl, welcome.
Welcome, everyone. We look forward to presentation and providing you some valuable information as relates to optimization of the quarry.
Yeah. We have a safe harbor notice. So this is kind of our boilerplate statement, regarding any forward-looking statements. If I say it's going to be out tomorrow, you can probably bet that it's probably not going to be out tomorrow. So, but we do have a safe harbor notice. Our goal is to use what you might potentially already have at your site, what technology that might you have, including scales, and to connect that to a system so you can get that information out wirelessly and see what kind of information you can glean from that and make it into actionable data to improve your operations. So we're trying to be lean. And use some of your existing technology and move it into better ways of using that data. Some of our learning objectives, we want to get the right information to the right people at the right time. So how do we help operators get the job done better, track materials, provide good customer service to your customers, and also identify areas of improvement. So in this presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about Trimble, just briefly, talk a little bit about the way we think about aggregates, how we can optimize in the pit, in your plant or your processing area, your loadout area, talk a little bit about the pandemic and COVID-19 and how we might be able to help there, along with customer service and site safety, and then what might be next steps after this presentation. And that's what we want to do. We want to try to transform the way you're doing things to make it better and more efficient. So a little bit maybe about Trimble. Karl, if you want to take over.
Sure, not a problem. Trimble is an international company headquartered in Cupertino, California. We're in the stock market, over $3 billion in revenue. Of that, 34% comes from the building and infrastructure marketplace, which our aggregates division, Loadrite, falls under. Got well over 2,000 patents, 360 in the construction, building, infrastructure side, and we reinvest 14% of our revenues back into R&D to continuously improve our products and provide better value for our customers. Like I said, we're an international company. We got 11,000 employees across 35 different countries, and we have global customers in over 150 different countries. So we have pretty broad scope. So you go. What we focus on is we tend to focus on the large industries that have the impact on industries around the world, like agriculture, building, civil engineering, construction. These are trillion-dollar industries that are always looking at ways to adopt technology and increase their productivity and the value to their end customers. Like I said, anywhere from agriculture all the way through transportation and logistics. So if we look at Trimble aggregates, what is it that we are trying to accomplish as relates to this whole environment, in the sense that we provide products to customers in the field and at the back office. We provide multiple solutions, and we have a history of innovation for 40 years. Loadrite was a leader as it relates to loader scales. We innovated that whole marketplace. We have strong partnerships with various OEMs and construction equipment manufacturers. And like I said, we have global reach and local support, and we tie all that together to provide a solution that you can utilize to run your business better. Working with some of these very large corporations that are well known, like Lafarge, Vulcan, Martin Marietta, Lehigh Hanson, and so forth. We've worked with all these companies through the years, providing information and solutions to their industries.
So let's talk a little bit about some industry challenges. When we look at the aggregates, Trimble understands that the aggregate industry is a tough industry to be in, right? We want to try to make sure your customers are successful at receiving your products. You know, there's a big pressure on product margins due to competition and tight specifications that you guys have to meet with your product, with the aggregates. Rising costs, of course, every year, new costs are raised, whether it's in energy and fuel and maintenance and environmental and health and safety regulations. All those things kind of tie in to the tougher burdens on you guys to be profitable. This year, especially limited access to capital to expand your operations, whether it's buying new equipment or improving your plant operations. You know, capital is very tough in the middle of a global pandemic. So the goal for us is to figure out how to get through some of these challenges to make you more lean and efficient and make you guys more profitable. The new normal. So if we talk about COVID-19 and the pandemic, you couple all these existing challenges with that, and you see, you know, the restrictions on your local economies, whether it's in the eastern part or the western part or in the Maritimes. Travel is restricted. Workers are having harder to get into work. They're not able to work with each other. You know, you got to sit, you know, across the lunchroom at separate tables. You're not allowed to congregate together and have safety meetings like you used to have. So tougher on your guys' operation by far. So looking back at where we've been, looking at the traditional quarry measurement tools, whether it's a pen and paper, writing down loads, using a clipboard, using clickers, using tally marks on pieces of paper, you know, supervisors watching from high walls or down in the pit, doing truck counts and truck totals and trying to do manual cycle time analysis. Lots of old school ways that was the best we could do. And that was the way we still do sometimes to try to make our operation better. So we're looking at ways to improve that information so that you guys can be leaner and faster and more productive. So experience has made us faster and better in operating. We've come up with some spreadsheets that we can manually enter into a computer. We can do in-house custom reports to make it a little easier to enter some of that data. We can also use consultants or even some of your vendors. You know, whether it's your local vendor for wear parts, or they have a lot of experience. So I would encourage you to use some of the experience from some of your vendors because they see lots of different sites and they see lots of different scenarios, and they can help you with some experience and some things to grow on as well. So where else? So access to that data, like we talked about earlier, we want to try to get that near real-time data available to us. We want to get that right data to the right people at the right time, so that ultimately they can make better decisions and manage their own tasks and their own selves. So if we can start getting information to them, the right information, they can start performing to what KPIs or benchmarks you have set for them, and they can basically manage themselves. You're giving them a tape measure per se, so that they can go out and monitor themselves and make sure that they're on task and hitting those goals and those benchmarks and those KPIs that you guys set as a company for them and for the team.
So now we're just going to take a look at how Trimble looks at your overall quarry operations and the different parts that we look at and how they're intertwined. So if we start about the overall process workflow in the construction environment, right? I mean, ultimately you start off with some raw product in a pit somewhere, you blast it out, you break it out, you haul it to some processing plant, you break it down. So secondary processing, or screen it and pass it through, and then it gets loaded out and gets loaded on the trucks, trains, barges, various ways that it gets out to the field. And then ultimately there might be some secondary processing generating maybe some concrete or some blacktop or whatever. And then ultimately it gets delivered to the construction site through these various ways. And ultimately what you need to do is, from a workflow, if you're a contractor, you want to be able to identify where that ton of product has been originally produced, how it flows through the whole process, and how it ultimately ends up at the construction site, and track that through the whole site so you have a better insight into the overall process. So if we look at the idea is usually you have lots of different types of equipment involved in this process from various manufacturers. And ideally, you'd like to be able to put, collect information from these different manufacturers and tie it together to provide an insight. And so what Loadrite tends to do is we're kind of manufacturer agnostic. We don't care what manufacturer's equipment we can put our product on or scales to acquire that information and deliver that information to the end user. So what is the connected quarry part of that, which is what Loadrite tends to focus on? Trimble has the whole continuum from extraction all the way to the construction site, but Loadrite focuses on the connected quarry. So if you look at the first three phases of that whole process that we talked about, you have the load and haul, you have the extraction of the rock, you have the transportation of that product to a processing plant, and then ultimately you're going to process that and you're going to load that out into various ways to get it to the site that you want to do. So ultimately, from that, you want to move on to the next part of that and identify what we're doing. One slide, Joe. So with that, you want to take all that information from whether it's extraction, processing, or loadout and be able to act faster in your environment. Everybody has a plan, right? But without the information, there's no way to go back and optimize that original plan and make changes to it so that you can execute your strategies and your business in a higher level and ultimately create some audit back to know what's happening and check everything, which then goes back into being able to react to the situations and being able to address problems within the process, and that allows you to deliver better value to your customer, better value to your corporation, or better value to your bottom line. So we look at ultimately the different parts of this that we get. You're going to have a bunch of devices that are collect a bunch of information. You're going to integrate it at some level, but ultimately you want to create some actionable insights, and hopefully those insights will help you produce benefits for productivity, right? Enhance operator safety, better completion of tasks, be able to do process improvements, right? Visibility of progress against plans, timely asset and resource allocation, continuous improvement, reduce costs, less waste, higher productivity. All those things become from that information that you get, that integration, and ultimately you can take that and create these actionable insights so that you can do things that affect your business in a positive way and provide a better experience for your customer.
So getting down to the nuts and bolts, so load and haul operations, one of the main three areas that we're going to talk about today in your quarry. We break it down into those three sectors, the pit, the plant, and the loadout area. So, how do we improve pit operations? Telematics given to the operators in the machine or maybe even to an equipment manager remotely are great. I mean, it's nice to know if you have a fault code. It's nice to know what your fuel consumption is or your engine hours. But wouldn't you like to know your actual cycle times or your averages on individual equipment, including like your loaders or an excavator, or each individual haul truck, your production totals in basically real time, or to know what kind of bottlenecks you have or speeding events that you're having or any other type of safety concerns, haul road problems. So this is what we're trying to do besides just basic fault codes and fuel consumption. We're trying to give you true production data down in the pit, in the plant, and in the loadout area as well. So you can see here your tonnage, how much is being moved, how much is being rehandled, what's your blast efficiencies, how much rework is being done, what kind of haulage rates you're having, and other key pieces that you will help you improve and optimize your pit operations. And you're probably already using some of the hardware that you need. You probably already have scales on your loaders. You might have scales in your loadout area. So it's just a matter of connecting these to a reporting tool so that you can get this information to the right people. And so that's what we're trying to do here with the Trimble Insight, the web reporting platform, so that we can kind of pull this information into one centralized area and be able to kind of show you what's happening. So this is a site manager's view. So you can kind of see, he's able to identify lost productivity. What time did the equipment start? What time did the loader actually get in the machine, start the machine? What time did it actually start lifting the boom and loading trucks? Starting to look at productivity and cycle counts, detailed delays. You can get so detailed. Now, it's not always something that a lot of companies do, but anytime that machine is stopped for over a set amount of time, you can have them report into what the delay is, waiting fuel, waiting trucks, but at least even if they don't put in the reason why they're delayed, you can start seeing how much, and you start asking your employees, and he says, we're waiting on trucks. We've got a lot of trucks bunched up. They're queuing too far out in the pit, and so it takes them forever to back in here so that I can load them. You can start seeing all these things, and you start to be able to see how you're progressing towards your target for daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly goals. You can start seeing speeding events and unsafe practices, and you can then replay what's happening in your operation. So if you see these action replays, I can see my haul trucks all day long leaving the pit and heading up to the primary crusher. And if I want to see what's happening, I can play that back at different speeds, and I can look at the whole 10-hour shift in 5 minutes or less, and I can kind of see where bottlenecks are happening, where stoppages are happening, where trucks are bunching up. This is giving you data that you've never been able to see before. Your pit foreman cannot sit down there all day long. He has other tasks he can do to be monitoring what's happening on that site at all times, down in the pit, and what's happening up at the primary. So these are some of the insights and some of the action that you can take with this information. And then you can report this information and dig a little deeper. Not everyone needs to see that data or certain parts of that data in real time, but you might have an analyst or a manager that wants to look and see certain breakdown periods to look at, what happened last week or what happened last month, what happened with blast 45, or what's happening in zone A of the pit or zone B. Being able to track down what you're doing, any type of improvements that you are trying to make, you can now monitor if those changes that you made are actually working. And you can see that in what we call near real time. Sometimes there's a few seconds or a few minutes delayed, but you basically get that information in real time and see if the screens that you changed out are working. See if the new teeth or the new bucket or the new trucks or the new the pass system that you set up is working. So all that stuff helps you track your production and help your employees be better at your jobs. You have an operator that's better than others, or one that's not as good. Do you need to get more training to them, or do you want to offer incentive for the employees and the operators that are doing really well, that are using those best practices and achieving their KPIs on a regular basis? So whether they're hitting their targets or they need to hit their targets, you can use this information both ways to give them additional training without penalizing them too much, and also giving some credits and some attaboys to those people that are doing the right thing every day in and out. So this is a perfect example of tracking your haul cycles. So if you look at a typical haul cycle, it has 4 steps. You have your loading, your travel to the dump site, your dumping, and then your return back to the pit. And so you can see in the top one how long it's taking them. On average, it looks like this one is 18.5 minutes. Well, when you start optimizing that and start giving that information, and the loader can see where he's at, the haul truck operators can see where they're at, they start seeing how much time that they're queuing, how often they're bunching up on the haul roads, how long they're bunching up at the primary crusher, dumping or into a surge pile. They can start seeing how they can improve that in real time. They look down there on the screen in their cab, and they know their average cycle time is either 18.5 minutes or that it should be more like 14 minutes, and they can work to improve it themselves and not have so much manager oversight to improve what they're doing. So if you can improve 4 minutes off of a cycle time times 4 trucks, you know, at the end of a day, that's 4.5 hours of production that you're gaining back. So could you reduce your haul operations on any given day by 1 hour and save you an hour of operating costs on your haul fleet and your loader? So it could equate to some really big numbers by shaving off a few minutes off of an 18-minute, for example, haul cycle time. So all that kind of leads from the pit up into the processing area. Carl?
Sure. So if we start looking at the processing, this is the bread and butter of most operations. This is where you either lose it, make money, lose money, or produce a bunch of stuff that nobody wants. So part of the issue is being able to take all the devices, whether they're onboard machine or fixed plant, and be able to tie them together and take that information and upload it into the internet from our standpoint to get it into Insight so you can look at this information real time as opposed to tomorrow or next week or at the end of the shift or after everything has occurred. So once you're able to get that information up into the internet, then you can start looking at it in a real-time fashion. So what are some of the issues that you run into? I mean, everybody has these issues. Black belt time, when there's nothing on the belt, just runs and runs and runs. Downtime, why is the plant down? Why is the belt down? Why are you not feeding the crusher? Why are we not getting it? How much are we putting in the stockpiles? Are we even producing stuff that's of value? Or are we just producing product that we don't need? Or are we producing the right product? Are we able to track how much we're producing? And where are the bottlenecks in the plant? Where are the issues showing up? How are we making to goals? If we have certain goals of product we're trying to make, those are all processing problems, right? Because if ultimately you're not processing the correct product or you're not processing efficiently, your plant's probably not making money. So it doesn't really matter what you're producing at the pit or what you're trying to load out. If you don't have the right mixture of material, ultimately you're not going to be profitable, and you're not going to be meeting the goals and of the corporation and ultimately of your customer. So if you look at systems of ways to do this, traditionally everybody is, the traditional way is if you have scales on your belt, you go out either in the middle of the day, end of day, however often you do it, and you start writing down numbers onto a piece of paper, and then you submit those into the management, and they might type them into a spreadsheet, and then hopefully by the next day you got a report on what you did. Well, with real-time information in a connected quarry environment, we can eliminate a lot of that. We can look at what's going on real-time in your environment. So you can look at it in very different ways, right? Like you did in the load haul side, you have the same side for the processing, right? So you can sit there and say, we need to produce X amount, let's say 220 tons an hour off of this belt to meet our production needs, right? It could be the primary or secondary, whatever belt that is. You can set up your different goals and objectives, and you can then track it. Unlike in the top scale, you can track it in real time where you are as it relates to your goals, right? And so you can see if you're ahead of target, below target, and allows you to make a real-time adjustment. The other one is showing you the real time of what's going on right now within that processing belt, let's say, because now you can see you're going to have ups and downs, and ideally you want to be above that steady state line to make sure that you're meeting your targets. And if you drop below it, you should be able to identify why are we dropping below this, right? So we can set up another secondary chart that shows us why is it you could have black belt time. And so if you're seeing excessive amount of black belt time, then you could possibly take immediate action to understand why is it that black belt is showing up. Why do we not have product on the belt? Is it because we have possibly a crusher that's blocked, or we have some other process in the plant, a screen that's gone bad or something? And then we can address those issues right away as opposed to waiting to the next day when we've produced a bunch of product that we potentially don't need. You can create summaries like on the side that just kind of shows you what you have right now. You can show, like, let's say the primary crusher output you're operating right now on the bottom there is 270 tons per hour, which is above your target. So that's kind of an instantaneous snapshot of what you're looking at so that you can better understand where your plant is and how efficient you are. And you can set this up for various operations, various belts, various pieces of equipment within your plant, and identify those targets, track them real time, and make sure that you're reaching your production capabilities. So if you, ultimately can report on your production, like you said, like, hey, this is a shift production as relates to what we did today, right? So we're only at 65%. We knew that right now as of this time frame here, it says 344, you know that exactly, hey, we're way behind. We're only 65%, 60% of where we want to be. So either we need to do some overtime and work on that during overtime, or the next day we have to make sure that we're able to make that up. And then ultimately we can look at the plant summary and say, well, it wasn't necessarily because of black belt time. So we can now do more root cause analysis to understand, why is it that we didn't meet our targets? Why is it that we didn't meet our goals and objectives and so forth? So it provides you the information to make business actionable intelligence as relates to addressing the issues now as opposed to tomorrow or next week or later down the road. So as the opportunity with this information, when you're trying to identify where the issues are, you can break down and you can identify, like, let's take a look, hey, why was the belt stopped for that period of time? Did we have a breakdown? Like, or did the operator have to stop that belt because it was overflowing some other product and we were just having product fall off the belt? Or why was the belt time? It gives you specific time frames that you can key in on and look at what's going on in your overall operations, so that you can better identify what issues may be affecting the overall plant and the efficiency and productivity of the plant at that point in time. So secondly, as part of trying to make sure that you're doing this real time and not later, nobody has the luxury anymore of just sitting in front of a screen all day and just looking at it and looking and trying to identify what's going on. So we can set up alerts. So basically you could set targets, and if you're falling within a certain percentage range or below a certain percentage range of those targets, it can send you a text message or an alert saying, hey, this process is not working properly. You're below the threshold that you set, that you wanted to be told when something's going on, so that now, instead of waiting till the end of the day, or like I said, or midday or whatever, you're being told immediately, and you can address the situation right away, or you can call up someone and have them look into the situation, as opposed to at the end of the day, you just wonder what happened during the middle of the day, as opposed to being alerted right away.
So that's all really good information for your processing side. We're going to shift. We're going to talk about the third area in your quarry, we call loadout. We talked about the pit, we talked about the plant or the processing, now loadout. One of the new products, hardware related, that has related is our new Smart Scale. So not only smarter in the logic that's built into it, the software, also the data management, how you get that information out or even just viewed on the scale, and then the user interface. The screen's bigger, it's color. Things make it easier for the operator to interact with it or interface with that scale. And that's become really important as we introduce new technology to these machine operators. Some of them haven't been doing it for 20 years, or the ones that have, maybe they're not comfortable with technology. So we want to try to make those more user-friendly and to increase their productivity and help them be better at their job. So pressures on the loadout operators, trying to make your customers as happy as possible. You've got competing quarries just down the road, whatever the competition is or the competitive factors in your area, we want to try to make those machine operators, those loader operators, better at what they do, so that they can serve the company better as well. So if we look at how we do this, basically it's artificial intelligence, right? That's any device that perceives its environment and takes actions that maximizes its chance of success. So the scale in the machine actually knows what conditions are around it. Now, it doesn't know if you're happy or sad, but it does know if it's on an incline. it does know if you have a bouncy load when you're pulling out of a pile, and you're shifting gears, or you're moving the loader arm up and down. So it takes those conditions into account, and it makes really good samples so that you get closer and closer to very accurate weight. We were really proud of our predecessor model, what we called the 2180, but the new 3180 is up to 40% more precise and 40% reduction in the standard deviation. So that all comes down to a scale that's easier for your operators to use, more accurate, and more dependable for you guys. One of the things that also is included is that ground slope compensation. For every degree of inclination up or down, it can contribute to about 0.3% weighing error. So the steeper the slopes, the rougher the floor, the bouncier the loads, including if we just want to look at tire pressure, the angle of the tire also matters. Radial tires have gotten better, but the machines have gotten bigger. And the ride control has tried to calm that down. But as these machines try to get to be 3-pass machines or even 2-pass machines, the buckets and the machines themselves are larger, and they tend to be a little bit more bouncy. So we want to try to compensate for that so that we can get really good weights, including any underinflated tires. That can contribute up to a couple degrees on the machine. And so we want to compensate for that so that every time that boom is lifted, that you're getting really accurate weights to make sure you're delivering a really good performance for your operators and for your customers. So we talked about that 40% more precise. We've tightened that curve. So with the better sensors, the better cable design, the better algorithms built into it, all gives for a better signal and more samples, which give you more opportunity to create really good weights as you're weighing that material. Another feature, split loading. We've made it easier. More and more companies are using pup trailers or tow behinds or even triple trailers. So we can load those trailers to the correct capacity as well every time. We want to make sure we're loading your customers to 100% capacity of whatever they're hauling every time, so that when they go to the weighbridge, that you're selling that customer as much as you possibly can. If we can load them to 100%, just add 1% onto every one of those tickets that you're billing for, that's free money for your company because you're already doing the work. And 1% at the end of a year for a million ton quarry adds up pretty fast at roughly say $10 a ton. That's quite a bit of money for doing no more work than you were already doing. So some of the metrics that are built into the web reporting and actually the scale itself inside the cab. So you can start seeing in real time or near real time what's happening. Both a manager can be looking at the snapshots to see what each truck is doing, what each loader is doing, what each belt is doing, what his stockpiles are doing. And then the machine operators themselves can look in real time as far as, how much they've loaded for the day, how much they've loaded since of certain products, and the certain breakdowns of different products that you guys are tracking. So it gives them real-time information, and they can monitor themselves. If they know they need to be at 1,000 tons by lunchtime, the top right snapshot shows that it's 12:01, and he has 1,091 tons already loaded. I don't know if you guys can see that if it is close enough. But so that lets that machine operator know that he's on target. He's actually 90 tons over where he needs to be for the day. So he should be feeling pretty good about himself. So you can also look at other in-cab metrics. So he can see what products he's loading. He can see how many trucks he's loading. He can see what his average tons per hour So he can start seeing all those things right there in real time as he's operating the day, and just makes him that much of a better operator. Makes a bad operator good, makes a good operator great. I guess is how I would like to explain it. It gives them the tools and the knowledge to make sure that they're improving and hitting what they're supposed to be hitting. Look at more metrics. If they want to go in deeper into a menu, they can click on the metrics, and they can see different breakdowns, different subtotals of different products for what they're tracking. Same thing with times if they're doing different tasks or different jobs. If they're loading bins, or they're sorting oversize, or they're hauling to additional stockpiles or moving stockpiles around, they can start tracking that as well. So you can see how much time they're spending out there in the yard, moving, doing different tasks or different jobs besides just loading customer trucks. Another one is empowerment features. So they can see their tons per hour, their trucks loaded, but also it'll show totals in there and the reports for the time they've spent on each one of those. So that's another unique, operator empowerment. You're giving him the tools to manage himself. You don't have to wait till the end of the shift, the end of the week, the end of the month to get back with them and let them know that they didn't hit their goals or their benchmarks. And last feature, Canada, you're lucky. So we sell these all across the globe, including down in the US, but Canada is fortunate enough that you can get a scale put into your wheel loader that is legal for trade. So currently our model 2180 is legal for trade. So you can add an extra sensor to that, have Measurement Canada come out and actually certify your loader as legal for trade. The newest model that I've talked about quite a bit here, the L3180, is in the middle of that testing, and that should be out soon. We're, with COVID and coronavirus, the testing has gotten delayed. So we're hoping to have that soon in the next, few months, but I don't know. We're waiting on the Canadian government to finish that. So I don't have an exact date as far as when that's going to be, certification is going to happen. But we do have an existing model that is, and the newest one will be certified, we believe, fairly soon. So that really is a game changer for some of those smaller pits that don't want to invest in a ground scale or a weighbridge, that they can certify the loader scale and turn that basically into a weighbridge.
So let's talk a little bit about today and where we are technology-wise, and how the big elephant in the room kind of is COVID-19 and how it's affected how we go around business today and address customer service. So traditionally, it's been a low-ticket environment, with whether on loadout where you're going to get a load ticket, whether it's going to be from the loader operator or at the scale house. Either way, it's wasting time getting in and out of the truck. And secondly, there's safety concerns around getting out of your truck, which is somewhat a secure environment, and not having to worry about getting crushed, run over, or so forth, hopefully. So every time you leave the cab of that truck, you're putting yourself in the safety situation that could create an accident situation. So, and not talking about interaction with people and having to, interact with people, which we're trying to minimize that interaction and so forth as it relates to that. So ideally is, instead of creating the load ticket, the physical load ticket, you want to kind of move forward into a different environment. We move on. Secondly, the other problem you have with just a standard load ticket is there's no, when we talked about the continuum from extraction all the way out to the construction site, there's a disconnect between the quarry operation as relates to the delivery of the product to the construction site. And so if you just have a load ticket, unless you got the driver, and if he's not working for the company, calling up on the construction supervisor and letting him know he left the quarry and how much he's delivering, when he's supposed to get there. And half the time, quarry, construction supervisors are pretty busy and tied up. They may not answer their cell phone or their radio call, whatever. So therefore, they don't know when the product's going to get there. They don't know exactly how much of the product's going to get there. So it can affect their operations at the other end. So therefore, it's kind of a disconnect between the raw product to the construction site. So those are some of the other challenges of just paper tickets. Ontario Sand and Gravel has pretty much acknowledged that, you know, policies need to change. No longer do they require signatures on tickets from the driver. Those will be generated by the scale operator potentially, and they won't ask the delivery driver to verify it and sign for it. It could create some challenges as it relates to that. There could be some discrepancies. You can do some additional reporting later on. And if there's questions and there's a challenge to the process, of course, then you can figure it out after everything occurs, which causes a lot of time, a lot of extra effort, and time is money, and probably additional costs as it relates to that whole process. So e-tickets is something that's become, like everything in today's environment, a way to address those situations where you want to improve safety of your operations. You want to make sure that the information is getting there, because one of the issues with paper tickets, of course, is, you know, they get torn, they get dropped, they get coffee spilled on them, they get blown out of the cab sometimes if they're not properly secured, they get stuck in someone's pocket, and the next thing you know, they go through the washing machine, and who knows what the ticket said anymore. And so therefore, it's always a tough issue with tickets. And so therefore, if you have an e-ticket, it's an electronic ticket. It's a summary of exactly what you see on a normal ticket. It gives you the specific load that was delivered, or you can get a summary of it, and it provides you an audit trail. Since it's electronic, you can always go back and reproduce that ticket and generate an audit trail of what was sent. So that's kind of a nice subject. So what are the additional benefits you get out of an e-ticket? Well, support the social distancing, right? If an e-ticket person doesn't have to get out of the cab to either get that paper ticket and so forth, it makes, secondly, safer workplaces. So people, secondly, don't have to get out of the cab and leave the safety of their cab to go to like a loader operator and climb up the stairs or to get the ticket from the loader operator and exposing himself to any potential dangers that might exist at that loadout operation. Additionally, some of the benefits is get a digital ticket. So therefore, they technically can't get lost. That allows you to be able to reprint tickets, it allows you to regenerate them, allows you to provide an audit trail, allows you to track where everything went. And ultimately, you can send that ticket to multiple people. It doesn't necessarily just have to go to the operator of the truck. It can go out to the construction supervisor. So therefore, you can monitor the material, and he can know what's coming, when it's coming, and how much it's coming, and so that he can make adjustments to their process or their on-job site, on-site job, to possibly make some changes or be a little more flexible so that they can be more productive and ultimately respond to changing conditions at the time. So basically the e-ticket it's a pretty fast, reliable way, and you can do multiple parties. Like I said, just not one person. You can set up a distribution list, so it can go to, let's say the truck driver can go to the main office of the trucking company and go out to a construction site, so everybody gets the information at the same time, and it's done immediately when the load's complete. So it doesn't have to worry about someone getting a ticket and dropping them off at the end of the shift or end of the day and giving all the tickets to some person that needs to probably manually enter them, and then they want to reconcile with everybody else what was done. They can just get the electronic copy of it and they can see it, and that will cut down any disputes and discrepancies between what's there. The nice thing is that e-tickets come standard with a Loadrite scale and Inside HQ. So that way you still have the capability to print out a ticket, but you can generate an e-ticket also. That way you create that paperless, contactless point of contact, increasing your safety, your productivity, and that way you also create your audit trail that allows you to be able to check to see what was done, what was generated, and what was processed during the day.
So Karl, next steps. We're kind of taking turns on this, but so what is your plans for your operation to take it to the next level next year in 2021? How can you do more with your existing assets, including your existing technology that you are using? How can you get access to your data you know, it's great that the scale is inside the machine and your machine operator can see it, but could you use that data for other people to see it and make better decisions and improve your operations? And with that, how can you monitor your fleet of equipment and your plant in better ways? And then ultimately, how can you keep your employees and your customers safer on site and from viruses and global pandemics and everything else? So you're responsible for all of those things, and it makes it really tough for you guys. So we're hoping that some of these solutions will help you do that to take you to the next steps and improve your operations. We are offering, if you want to look at doing a trial on a loader scale or connecting an existing loader scale to get it connected to the internet so that you can use this web reporting feature. So you can start tracking this through the Insight software and website. That is going to go on till the end of November. So we would encourage you to take advantage of this trial offer. And we've got a list of our 3 Loadrite dealers in Canada. We've got one in Western Canada. Rick Ruka's operation runs all the way over to Saskatchewan from the East Coast. We have Silvertop Supply, covers Manitoba all the way over to Quebec, including Ontario. And then we have Always Systems out that covers the Maritimes. So those 3 dealers, you can start tracking them down if you want to look at taking your operations to the next steps. We can't take questions on this, so if you would like to, I'm going to go back to that slide. We've got the website or the email address. If you would like to contact us or find your local dealer, we would encourage you to do that. Take advantage of the opportunity to have a trial to see if this is something that can improve your operations. Karl?
I just want to thank everyone for the time you spent, and hopefully we provided you some valuable information. And meanwhile, stay safe out there, and hopefully our paths will cross next year in a less virtual environment.
Thank you, everyone.